Thank you for joining us. Today, we will walk you through the process of entering your PPP forgiveness application. Depending on your business structure, here is a list of the documentation you will need. Today, we have Erin DeMarco with Pinnacle Financial Partners, and she is going to walk us through the standard application form. Erin, thank you so much for helping us.
Thank you, Sandy. So we've created a calculator to be used with the full 3508 forgiveness application from the SBA. We suspect that not many of our clients will have to go through this full process, but in the event that they do, we wanted to provide a tool to help with some of the more complex calculations involved with this full form. On the instructions tab of this form, we've given some pertinent information to using this tool. One of those items is that if you are a large company or use a large payroll processor, such as an ADP or a Paychex, you should check with that processor to see if they have PPP forgiveness reports that will support your inputs for the Schedule A worksheet and the Schedule A, and for the FTE calculations that are required to use this full forgiveness form. This tool is meant to accompany the forgiveness application and assist you in collecting the relevant pieces of data and aggregating information that you'll need in order to submit your application into our enumerated platform. Again, there is an easy form available from the SBA. We would encourage anyone using this full forgiveness form to revisit those instructions and the certifications to see if you may be eligible for the Streamlined Forgiveness Easy form. This workbook has many tabs and can be complex. We don't recommend that you attempt to do this in numerical order, but just follow the instructions that we've laid out. The first thing you'll want to do is go to the Table 1 and Table 2 of the Schedule A worksheet tab, which is tab number 3, PPP Schedule A worksheet. Here, you'll begin to enter your pertinent loan information, your loan disbursement date. If you want to select the alternative covered period start date, which is the first day of the first pay period following your loan disbursement date, you would enter it on line 11, and then select your start date for your covered period. You would also enter on line 16 the beginning and end date of the most recent quarter, and then you would select on line 17 whether you'd like to use an 8 or 24-week covered period. Once that selection is made, your dates will pre-fill for your covered period. You will move down to the Schedule A worksheet. There are 2 worksheets, one for employees making less than $100,000 annualized, and one for employees making more than $100,000 annualized. It is required by the SBA that you list out each of these employees individually, which we've given you a space to do this. If you need to add rows, the worksheet will allow you to add rows, and the formulas will continue to work and flow back to the template if needed, which is tab 2 of this worksheet, and bypass this calculation tool. So here you'll see on page 2 of this worksheet that cash compensation, which is box 1 from your Schedule A worksheet table 1, could pre-fill from our table, or you could just enter that information if you have a report from your payroll provider. Keeping in mind that that report must list every employee individually if you're going to enter the information into the Schedule A. Going back to the Schedule A worksheet, we'll talk about what is being calculated here and what the requirements are. The point of this worksheet is to calculate any wage reductions that were experienced by your employees over your covered period. So step 1 is determine if there were wage reductions of more than 25%. And this covers rows I, J, and K. So you will enter annual hourly or salary wages from January 1st to March 31st of 2020. You will enter any average annual salary or hourly wages over your covered period or alternative covered period, and then the percent of salary paid will be automatically calculated. If that percentage is less than 75%, then you will determine if the hourly or salary wage reduction safe harbor is met. In doing that, you'll move on to step 2 of this worksheet, which are rows L through O, where you will enter wages as of February 15th, 2020, wages between February 15th, 2020 and April 26th, 2020, and average or salary or hourly wages as of December 31st, 2020. Very important note, if you are submitting your application for forgiveness before the end of a 24-week covered period, so if you've selected 24 weeks of a covered period and you're applying at week 15 and you have salary reductions that are above 25%, you will be subject to recognizing those reductions over the full 24 weeks. So the calculation of wages reduced will be on a 24-week basis, not 15, if that's where you've chosen to apply. Once you've entered your information, it will tell you if you've met the safe harbor, yes or no. That information will automatically pre-fill. If you have not met the safe harbor, in step 3, the actual reduction to your forgiveness will be calculated based upon the hourly wage reduction, the number of hours worked per week in the first quarter of 2020, and then your reduction amount to be entered into your application will be calculated in column T. It's an automatic calculation. Again, regardless of when you apply, if you've selected the 24-week period, it will be over 24 weeks if you've reduced salaries. Again, this is for your actual employees who make less than $100,000 annualized. Moving down this page, we have another table for those employees making greater than $100,000 annualized. It's a more simple calculation, but here you'll enter in their cash compensation and the number of hours that they've worked. Typically, if it's an employee making over $100,000, they're going to amount to 1 FTE. And again, their compensation is limited by the $100,000 annualized amount. Once you've entered in all of those information for each employee individually, or you've collected a report from your payroll processor that works through this calculation, you'll go back to your forgiveness app template, where you will see that your payroll costs will be pre-filled and your reductions, if any, will be pre-filled. And that's going to be your line 1 as well as your line 5 and 6. That covers wage reductions. The next item that you have to determine with this calculation is FTE reduction. So we've included an FTE calculator, which is tab number 4. Here you enter FTE information for your covered period as well as your comparative period, which you are able to select between 2 different periods, and you would enter in all of this information. Again, payroll processors such as ADP and Paychex have created these reports, and you can obtain those reports as your supporting information to submit to the lender on FTEs for your covered period, as well as FTEs for any period that you choose for comparison. So when I say that it's a chosen reference period, it's at your election. The borrower is able to choose whichever period is more beneficial, and those periods are either February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019, or January 1st, 2020 to February 29th, 2020. That is the borrower's choice, and you can run it both ways and see which is more beneficial if you've had FTE reductions. Again, you would ignore reductions of FTEs that were as a result of employees who were let go and you attempted to rehire, but they did not accept their positions back. Noting that one of the major requirements of disregarding those employees is that you did report that information to the unemployment office to ensure that they were not collecting unemployment when they were being offered jobs back. That last line in the middle box there, seasonal employees, they must select between either February 15th, 2019 and June 30th, 2019, or May 1st, 2019 and September 15th, 2019 for their seasonal employee FTE numbers. Once you've entered that information, you'll go down to the FTE reduction safe harbor. Again, this is a calculation that flows into the Schedule A worksheet, which is a worksheet that determines all of your reductions, FTE, and wages. So once you've entered your information here, it will tell you whether or not you've met the safe harbor. And if you have, you'll enter 1 on line 13 of your PPP Schedule A. If not, you'll enter a number less than 1, which will calculate any FTE reduction. So going to the PPP Schedule A, which is tab 2 of this workbook, here will be any reductions that you've had to recognize based on reductions in wages that you have experienced over the covered period, or reductions in FTEs that do not meet one of the safe harbor requirements. All of this information pre-fills except for the compensation to owners, which is line 9 of this form. Here you'll enter any employee owner and owner compensation. One note here is that employee owner and owner compensation is limited to $15,385 over an 8-week covered period and $20,833 over a 24-week covered period. That is per owner employee or a self-employed individual or general partner. Once that's entered in, everything else will pre-fill. You'll be asked in line 24 if you have any FTE reductions from your calculator. You use the drop down to select yes or no, and then everything else will calculate automatically for entry into your forgiveness app template. So once you've completed the Schedule A worksheet, any remaining information for Schedule A and your FTE calculator, your PPP forgiveness app template should be pretty much pre-filled. You will enter gray boxes, your legal business name, trade name if applicable, address, tax ID, etc. And then it will tell you, you will also enter on line 9 your loan amount, and then your forgiveness amount on line 11 will be calculated. This form matches the actual application form that you would enter into Numerated. So once you've completed all of the schedules and the calculators that accompany this form, you will be able to enter your information directly into Numerated and upload your supporting documentation. This calculator should be uploaded as part of that supporting documentation and any payroll reports or other required documentation. We've included also with this calculator an other payroll cost aggregator, tab 5. This is where you can enter in employer contributions for health insurance, employer contributions for retirement plans, and any borrower paid state and local assessed tax on employee compensation. Note that federal taxes paid by the employer are never includable in forgiveness. We've also included for this application a non-payroll cost aggregator, tab 6. And this was where you would compute any of your business mortgage interest on real or personal property, any lease payments over the covered period for business property, and any business utility expenses that are allowable under the PPP. Your dates in both of these aggregators will pre-fill based upon your selected covered period dates. When 8 weeks is selected, your weeks 9 through 24 will automatically be grayed out. And again, this information, once aggregated on 5 and 6, will flow back to your application for forgiveness, which is the tab 1. Finally, with this calculator, we've included some informational tabs to help you along. Tab number 7, lender requirements. This is Pinnacle's responsibility in reviewing your information and submitting your application for forgiveness to the SBA. These are the items that we're required to collect and validate in conjunction with processing your application. On tab 8, we've included for you your required documentation to submit to us with your application. These are requirements by the SBA to submit your application for forgiveness and requirements that Pinnacle must review in order to validate the amount of forgiveness you're applying for. This calculator, again, is part of that documentation that we as a bank are requiring in order to review your application for forgiveness. That concludes the 3508 long form calculator that we've created.
Click on the link provided by Pinnacle and it will take you straight to the authentication page. You will be required to key in 3 pieces of information to authenticate yourself: your email address, your tax ID, and your original PPP loan amount. If you are unsure of this information, you may contact our Small Business Client Service Center at 1-877-380-0654. Their hours of operation are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time, and on Saturdays from 8 a.m. until noon, Central Standard Time. I will begin by entering information to authenticate myself. When I've entered the information, I will click on Find My PPP Loan. On this screen, you will want to confirm your business information to make sure it is accurate. And in today's demonstration, we will be doing the standard application. I will pick that in the drop-down. You would use this application if you did not qualify for the easy application by answering yes to the standard questions. It'll be very important at this point that you have all completed calculators and documentation handy to enter the information. You will enter your annual sales, which is required for CRA. The system will pre-fill the number of employees at the time of your PPP loan application. And in this section, you will want to enter the number of employees at the time of forgiveness. If you took an idle advance amount, you would enter that here, as well as the application number. And we will demonstrate an example of that shortly. In this drop-down, you will want to select your payroll frequency. The Flexibility Act allows you to choose whether you used funds over an 8-week or a 24-week period. The end of period is determined by the Flex Act and the number of weeks you choose in the drop-down. The system defaults to 24 weeks. If I change that to 8 weeks, you will see my end of covered period changes. You also have the ability to choose an alternate payroll covered period. You would have done so on your calculator. And at any point, if you have questions about what these fields mean, there is a Learn More hyperlink out to the right of each field that you can click on. By doing so, it will bring up a definition of that field. These Learn More links are provided throughout the application process. You will be asked whether you received PPP loans in excess of $2 million, and you must enter yes or no. Schedule A, line 1, cash compensation. This will come straight from the calculator that you completed. Cash compensation for employees making more than $100,000 will also come from the calculator. Any salary or hourly wage reduction in excess of 25% must be entered in this box. If you do not have an amount, please enter 0. Your employee health insurance amount would be entered next. Any retirement contributions that you made would be entered here. Employee taxes. If you took an owner's compensation, you would enter that amount or enter 0 if you did not. Schedule A, line 2. Any full-time employees making less than or equal to 100,000, you would list that number here. The number of employees making more than 100,000, enter here. These are questions you will need to ask in regards to the standard application. If you have questions about what this means, feel free to click on the Learn More link, and it'll give you an explanation. Safe Harbor 1. If you were unable to operate between February 15th and the end of the covered period, you would want to mark yes. Safe Harbor 2. You satisfy your full-time employee reduction, and that would come off your Schedule A worksheet. Schedule A, line 11, will also come off your completed calculator. The chosen FTE reference period is the period you chose to determine your number of qualifying full-time employees when you applied for your PPP loan, and you will have 3 options in the drop-down to choose from. Line 1 for total payroll cost will come from your calculator. In this section, you will enter any mortgage interest payments that you made, and if you did not have any, please enter 0. Rent or lease payments, and any utility payments. As you enter the fields in the calculator, the system will calculate your forgiveness amount. If it is fully forgiven, you will see that amount in this box, and you will see that you have a 0 remaining loan balance. The system is very intuitive, so if I go back up and change my idle advance to show that I had an advance on it, we'll demonstrate that for you here. If I scroll back down, you will now see that I have a forgiveness gap of $10,000, which represents the amount of my idle advance. All idle amounts will be deducted from the SBA payoff to our bank and will be your responsibility as with any other forgiveness gap amount based on your application. Once I have completed all the information in the application, you will want to confirm the primary owner information that'll be pre-filled by the bank. You will be required to verify the Social Security number for the primary owner. The system will validate this number. You will then be required to check 2 certification boxes. One is the e-sign consent agreement, and the other will be the PPP loan forgiveness borrower certification. When I check the box, it will pull up the e-sign consent agreement, and I will have the option to read it and close it, or I can email the document to my email address. You will be required to check both boxes before submitting your application. Now at this point, I have 2 options. If I agree with all the information, I can submit my application and move on. If I do not feel the forgiveness amount is correct, or maybe I still have some documentations to obtain, I can save the application and come back later and complete it. If I submit my application it will bring me to the Upload Your Supporting Documents screen. Your supporting documents are all the documents you collected prior to filling out your forgiveness application. All documents will need to be uploaded to the system. In this example, I want to upload my compensation for employees. You can click on Browse, find the document that you want to upload, double-click on it, and as you will see, it's uploading this document. And once it is finished, it will say Uploaded Now. I will do that for each section that I need to provide documentation. When I feel I have uploaded all required documentation, I will click on Submit for Review. At this point, I will get a status message telling me that I have submitted my forgiveness application. There is a 60-day review period. If there are any questions regarding the documents that you uploaded, or if more information is needed, you will receive an email with follow-up instructions. If you scroll down the screen, you will have a summary of the documents that you uploaded, and you also get a brief summary of your forgiveness request. At this point, you can exit the system. This completes your standard application. If you have additional questions or need further information, please reach out to our Small Business Client Center at 1-877-380-0654, or you may also reach out to your financial advisor. Thank you.